How's it going, everybody? And thank you for joining me on this weekly Word Wednesday on Out of the Bothros. So we've been leaving off here on Ezekiel 11. We're just going to go ahead and jump right into chapter 12 here of the series of the Son of Man. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, you are living among a rebellious people. They have eyes to see, but do not see, and ears to hear, but do not hear, for they are a rebellious people. Therefore, son of man, pack your belongings for exile, and in the daytime, as they watch, set out and go from where you are to another place. Perhaps they will understand, though they are a rebellious people. During the daytime, while they watch, bring out your belongings packed for exile. Then in the evening, while they are watching, go out like those who go into exile. While they watch, dig through the wall, and take your belongings out through it. Put them on your shoulder as they are watching and carry them out at dusk. Cover your face so that you cannot see the land, for I have made you a sign to the house of Israel. So I did as I was commanded. During the day I brought out my things packed for exile. Then in the evening I dug through the wall with my hands. I took my belongings out at dusk, carrying them on my shoulders while they watched. In the morning, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, did that rebellious house of Israel ask you, what are you doing? Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. This oracle concerns the prince in Jerusalem, and the whole house of Israel who are there. Say to them, I am assigned to you. As I have done, so it will be done to them. They will go into exile as captives. The prince among them will put his things on his shoulders at dusk and leave, and a hole will be dug in the wall for him to go through. He will cover his face so that he cannot see the land. I will spread my net for him, and he will be caught in my snare. I will bring him to Babylonia, the land of the Chaldeans, but he will not see it, and there he will die. I will scatter to the winds all those around him, his staff and all his troops, and I will pursue them with drawn sword. They will know that I am the Lord, when I disperse them among the nations and scatter them through the countries. But I will spare a few of them from the sword, famine, and plague, so that in the nations where they go they may acknowledge all their detestable practices. Then they will know that I am the Lord. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, tremble as you eat your food, and shudder in fear as you drink your water. Say to the people of the land, this is what the sovereign Lord says about those living in Jerusalem and in the land of Israel. They will eat their food in anxiety and drink their water in despair, for their land will be stripped of everything in it because of the violence of all who live there. The inhabited towns will be laid waste, and the land will be desolate. Then you will know that I am the Lord. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, what is this proverb you have in the land of Israel? The days go by, and every vision comes to nothing. Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am going to put an end to this proverb, and they will no longer quote it in Israel. Say to them, the days are near when every vision will be fulfilled, for there will be no more false visions or flattering divinations among the people of Israel. But I, the Lord, will speak what I will, and it shall be fulfilled without delay. For in your days, you rebellious house, I will fulfill whatever I say, declares the sovereign Lord. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, the house of Israel is saying, the vision he sees is for many years from now, and he prophesies about the distant future. Therefore say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. None of my words will be delayed any longer. Whatever I say will be fulfilled, declares the sovereign Lord. Chapter 13. The word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel, who are now prophesying. Say to those who prophesy out of their own imagination, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to the foolish prophets who follow their own spirit and have seen nothing. Your prophets, O Israel, are like jackals among ruins. You have not gone up to the breaks in the wall to repair it for the house of Israel, so that it will stand firm in the battle on the day of the Lord. Their visions are false, and their divinations a lie. They say, the Lord declares, when the Lord has not sent them, yet they expect their words to be fulfilled. Have you not seen false visions and uttered lying divinations when you say the Lord declares, though I have not spoken? Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says. Because of your false words and lying visions, I am against you, declares the sovereign Lord. My hand will be against the prophets who see false visions and utter lying divinations. They will not belong to the council of my people, or be listed in the records of the house of Israel, nor will they enter the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am the sovereign Lord. Because they led my people astray, saying peace when there was no peace, and because when a flimsy wall is built, they cover it with whitewash. Therefore tell those who cover it with whitewash that it is going to fall. Rain will come in torrents, and I will send hailstones hurtling down, and violent winds will burst forth. When the wall collapses, will people not ask you, where is the whitewash you covered it with? Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says. In my wrath I will unleash a violent wind, and in my anger hailstorms and torrents of rain will fall with destructive fury. I will tear down the walls you have covered with whitewash, and will level it to the ground, so that its foundations will be laid bare. When it falls, you will be destroyed in it, and you will know that I am the Lord. So I will spend my wrath against the wall, and against those who covered it with whitewash. I will say to you, the wall is gone, and so are those who whitewashed it. Those prophets of Israel who prophesied to Jerusalem and saw visions of peace for her, when there was no peace, declares the sovereign Lord. Now, son of man, set your face against the daughters of your people who prophesy out of their own imagination. Prophesy against them and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to the women who sew magic charms on their waists and make veils of various lengths for their heads in order to ensnare people. Will you ensnare the lives of my people but preserve your own? You have profaned me among my people for a few handfuls of barley and scraps of bread. By lying to my people who listen to lies, you have killed those who should not have died, and have spared those who should not live. Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against your magic charms, with which you ensnare people like birds. I will tear them from your arms. I will set free the people that you ensnare like birds. I will tear off your veils and save my people from your hands, and they will no longer fall prey to your power. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Because you disheartened the righteous with your lies, when I had brought them no grief, and because you encouraged the wicked not to turn from their evil ways and so save their lives, therefore you will no longer see false visions or practice divination. I will save my people from your hands, and then you will know that I am the Lord. Chapter 14. Some of the elders of Israel came to me and sat down in front of me. Then the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, these men have set up idols in their hearts and put wicked stumbling blocks before their faces. Should I let them inquire of me at all? Therefore speak to them and tell them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. When any Israelite sets up idols in their hearts and puts a wicked stumbling block before his face and then goes to a prophet, I, the Lord, will answer him myself in keeping with his great idolatry. I will do this and recapture the heart of the people of Israel who have all deserted me for their idols. Therefore, says the house of Israel, this is what the sovereign Lord says: repent, turn from your idols, and renounce all your detestable practices. When any Israelite or any alien living in Israel separates himself from me and sets up idols in his heart, and puts a wicked stumbling block before his face, and then goes to a prophet to inquire of me, I, the Lord, will answer him myself. I will set my face against him, that man, and make him an example and a byword. I will cut him off from my people, then you will know that I am the Lord. And if the prophet is enticed to utter a prophecy, I, the Lord, will have enticed that prophet, and I will stretch out my hand against him and destroy him from among my people Israel. They will bear their guilt. The prophet will be as guilty as the one who consults him. Then the people of Israel will no longer stray from me, nor will they defile themselves any more with all their sins. They will be my people, and I will be their God, declares the sovereign Lord. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, if a country sins against me by being unfaithful, and I stretch out my hand against it to cut it off its food supply and send famine upon it, and kill its men, and their animals, even if those 3 men, Noah, Daniel, and Job, were in it, they could save only themselves by their righteousness, declares the sovereign Lord. Or if I send wild beasts through that country, and they leave it childless, and it becomes desolate, so that no one can pass through it because of the beasts. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if those 3 men were in it, they could not save their own sons or daughters. They alone would be saved, but the land would be desolate. Or if I bring a sword against that country and say, let the sword pass through the land, and I kill its men and their animals, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if these 3 men were in it, they could not save their own sons or daughters. They alone would be saved. Or if I send a plague into the land, and pour out my wrath upon it, through bloodshed, killing its men and their animals, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, even if Noah, Daniel, and Job were in it, they could save neither son nor daughter. They would save only themselves by their righteousness. For this is what the sovereign Lord says: how much worse will it be when I send against Jerusalem my 4 dreadful judgments, sword and famine and wild beasts and plague, to kill its men and their animals. Yet there will be some survivors, sons and daughters who will be brought out of it. They will come to you, and when you see their conduct and their actions, you will be consoled regarding the disaster I have brought upon Jerusalem. Every disaster I have brought upon it, you will be consoled. When you see their conduct and their actions, for you will know that I have done nothing in it without cause, declares the sovereign Lord. Chapter 15. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, how is the wood of a vine better than that of a branch on any of the trees in the forest? Is wood ever taken from it to make anything useful? Do they make pegs for it to hang things on? And after it is thrown on the fire as fuel, and the fire burns both ends and chars the middle? Is it then useful for anything? If it is not useful for anything, when it was whole, how much less can it be made into something useful when the fire has burned and it is charred? Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says: as I have given the wood of the vine among the trees of the forest as fuel for the fire, so will I treat the people living in Jerusalem. I will set my face against them. Although they have come out of the fire will yet consume them. And when I set my face against them, you will know that I am the Lord. I will make the land desolate because they have been unfaithful, declares the sovereign Lord. Chapter 16. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, Confront Jerusalem with her detestable practices and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says to Jerusalem. Your ancestry and birth were in the land of the Canaanites. Your father was an Amorite, and your mother a Hittite. On the day you were born, your cord was not cut, nor were you washed with water to make you clean, nor were you rubbed with salt or wrapped in cloths. No one looked on you with pity or had compassion enough to do any of these things for you. Rather, you were thrown out into the open field, for on the day you were born, you were despised. Then I passed by and saw you kicking about in your blood, and as you lay there in your blood, I say to you, live. I made you grow like a plant of the field. You grew up and developed and became the most beautiful of jewels. Your breasts were formed and your hair grew, and you were naked and bare. Later I passed by, and I looked at you, and saw that you were old enough for love. I spread the corner of your garments over you, and covered your nakedness. I gave you my solemn oath, and entered into a covenant with you, declares the sovereign Lord, and you became mine. I bathed you with water, and washed you with blood. From you I put ointments on you. I clothed you with an embroidered dress, and put leather sandals on you. I dressed you in fine linen, and covered you with costly garments. I adorned you with jewelry. I put bracelets on your arms, and necklaces around your neck. And I put a ring in your nose, earrings on your ears, and a beautiful crown on your head. So you were adorned with gold and silver. Your clothes were of fine linen and costly fabric and embroidered cloth. Your food was fine flour, honey, and olive oil. You became very beautiful and rose to be a queen. And your fame spread among the nations on account of your beauty, because the splendor I had given you made your beauty perfect, declares the sovereign Lord. But you trusted in your beauty and used your fame to become a prostitute. You lavished your favor on anyone who passed by, and your beauty became his. You took some of your garments to make gaudy high places where you carried on your prostitution. Such things should not happen, nor should they ever occur. You also took the fine jewelry I gave you, the jewelry of my gold and silver, and you made for yourself male idols, and engaged in prostitution with them. And you took your embroidered cloths to put on them, and you offered my oil and incense before them. Also the food I provided you, the fine flour, olive oil, and honey, I gave you to eat. You offered as fragrant incense before them. This is what happened, declares the sovereign Lord. And you took your sons and daughters, whom you bore to me, and sacrificed them as food to the idols. Was your prostitution not enough? You slaughtered my children and sacrificed them to idols. In all your detestable practices and your prostitution, you did not remember the days of your youth, when you were naked and bare, kicking about in your blood. Woe, woe to you, declares the sovereign Lord. In addition to all of your other wickedness, you built a mound for yourself and made a lofty shrine in every public square. At the head of every street you built lofty shrines and degraded your beauty, offering your body with increasing promiscuity to anyone who passed by. You engaged in prostitution with the Egyptians, your lustful neighbors, and provoked me to anger with your increasing promiscuity. So I stretched out my hand against you and reduced your territory. I gave you over to the greed of your enemies, the daughter of the Philistines, who were shocked by your lewd conduct. You engaged in prostitution with the Assyrians too, because you were insatiable. And even after that, you still were not satisfied. Then you increased your promiscuity to include the Babylonia, and a land of merchants. But even with this you were not satisfied. How weak-willed you are, declares the sovereign Lord, when you do all these things, acting like a brazen prostitute. When you built your mounds at the head of every street and made lofty shrines in every public square, you were unlike a prostitute because you scorned payment. You adulterous wife, you prefer strangers to your own husband. Every prostitute receives a free, but you give gifts to all your lovers, bribing them to come to you from everywhere with your illicit favors. So in your prostitution, you are the opposite of others. No one runs after you for your favor. You are the very opposite, for you give payment and none is given to you. Therefore, you prostitute, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Because you poured out your wealth and exposed your nakedness in your promiscuity with your lovers, and because of all your detestable idols, and because you gave them your child's blood, therefore I am going to gather all your lovers with whom you found pleasure, those you loved as well as those you hated. I will gather them against you from all around, and I will strip you in front of them, and they will see all your nakedness. I will sentence you to the punishment of women who commit adultery and who shed blood. I will bring upon you the blood vengeance of wrath and jealous anger. Then I will hand you over to your lovers, and they will tear down your mounds and destroy your lofty shrines. They will strip you of your clothes and take your fine jewelry and leave you naked and bare. They will bring a mob against you, who will stone you and hack you to pieces with their swords. They will burn down your houses and inflict punishment on you in the sight of many women. I will put a stop to your prostitution, and you will no longer pay your lovers. Then my wrath against you will subside, and my jealous anger will turn away from you. I will be calm and no longer angry, because you did not remember the days of your youth, but enraged me with all these things. I will surely bring down on your head what you have done, declares the sovereign Lord. Did you not add lewdness to all of your other detestable practices? Everyone who quotes Proverbs will quote this proverb about you. Like mother, like daughter. You are a true daughter of your mother, who despises her husband and her children. And you are a true sister of your sisters, who despise their husbands and their children. Your mother was a Hittite, and your father an Amorite. Your older sister was Samaria, who lived to the north of you with her daughters, and your younger sister, who lived to the south of you with her daughters, was Sodom. You not only walked in their ways and copied their detestable practices, but in all of your ways you soon became more depraved than they. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, your sister Sodom and her daughters never did what you and your daughters have done. Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and underconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me. Therefore I did away with them, as you have seen. Samaria did not commit half the sins you did. You have done more detestable things than they, and have made your sisters seem righteous. By all these things you have done. Bear your disgrace, for you have furnished some justification for your sisters. Because your sins were more vile than theirs, they appear more righteous than you. So then be ashamed and bear your disgrace, for you have made your sisters appear righteous. However, I will restore the fortune of Sodom and her daughters, and of Samaria and her daughters, and your fortunes along with them, so that you may bear your disgrace and be ashamed of all you have done in giving them comfort. And your sister Sodom with her daughters and Samaria with her daughters will return to what they were before, and you and your daughters will return to what you were before. You would not even mention your sister Sodom in the day of your pride. Before your wickedness you was uncovered. Even so, you are now scorned by the daughters of Edom, and all her neighbors and the daughters of the Philistines. All those around you despise you. You will bear the consequences of your lewdness and your detestable practices, declares the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I will deal with you as you deserve, because you have despised my oath by breaking the covenant. Yet I will remember the covenant I made with you in the days of your youth, and I will establish an everlasting covenant with you. Then you will remember your ways and be ashamed when you receive your sister, both those who are older than you and those who are younger. I will give them to you as daughters, but not on the basis of my covenant with you. So I will establish my covenant with you, and you will know that I am the Lord. Then when I make atonement for you, for all you have done, you will remember and be ashamed, and never again open your mouth because of your humiliation, declares the sovereign Lord. Chapter 17 is where we're going to finish here. And then we'll go ahead and do a little bit of reflection of the analogy we just went through and some of the things that the Lord is saying. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man. Set forth an allegory and tell the house of Israel a parable. Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. A great eagle with powerful wings, long feathers, and full plumage of varied colors came to Lebanon. Taking hold of the top of a cedar, he broke off its topmost shoot and carried away to the land of merchants, where he planted it in a city of traders. He took some of the seeds of your land and put it in the fertile soil. He planted it like a willow by abundant water, and it sprouted and became a low-spreading vine. Its branches turned toward him, but its roots remained under it. So it became a vine and produced branches and put out leafy boughs. But there was another great eagle with powerful wings and full plumage. The vine now set out its roots towards him from the plot where it was planted and stretched out its branches to him for water. It had been planted in good soil by abundant water, so that it would produce branches, bear fruit, and become a splendid vine. Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Will it thrive? Will it not be uprooted and stripped of its fruit so that it withers? All its new growth will wither. It will not take a strong arm or many people to pull it up by the root. Even if it is transplanted, will it thrive? Will it not wither completely when the east wind strikes it, wither away in the plot where it grew? Then the word of the Lord came to me. Say to these rebellious house, do you not know what these things mean? Say to them, the kings of Babylon went to Jerusalem and carried off her king and her nobles, bringing back with him to Babylon. Then he took a member of the royal family and made a treaty with him, putting him under oath. He also carried away the leading men of the land, so that the kingdom would be brought low, unable to rise again, surviving only by keeping his treaty. But the king rebelled against him by sending his envoys to Egypt to get horses and a large army. Will he succeed? Will he who does such things escape? Will he break the treaty and yet escape? As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, he shall die in Babylon, in the land of the king who put him on the throne, whose oath he despised and whose treaties he broke. Pharaoh with his mighty army and great horde will be of no help to him in war. When ramps are built and siege works erected to destroy many lives, he despised the oath by breaking the covenant, because he had given his hand in pledge, and yet did all these things, he shall not escape. Therefore this is what the sovereign Lord says, as surely as I live, I will bring down on his head my oath, so that he despised, and my covenant that he broke. I will spread my net for him, and he will be caught in my snare. I will bring him to Babylon and execute judgment upon him. Therefore, because he was unfaithful to me, all his fleeing troops will fall by the sword, and the survivors will be scattered to the winds. Then you will know that I am the Lord, that I, the Lord, have spoken. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself will take a shoot from the very top of a cedar and plant it. I will break off a tender sprig from its topmost shoot and plant it on a high and lofty mountain. On the mountain's height of Israel I plant it. It will produce branches and bear fruit and become a splendid cedar. Birds of every kind will nest in it. They will find shelter in the shade of its branches. All the trees of the field will know that I, the Lord, bring down the tall tree and make the low tree grow tall. I dry up the green tree and make the dry tree flourish. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will do it. Okay, so we can see here in some of this section, we've got Ezekiel speaking with the Lord. He's supposed to show them things that are coming so that when they actually happen, they can remember the Lord and know that this man, the prophet, is speaking with the Spirit of the Lord upon him. Because he's basically doing the things before they happen and showing them and saying to them what is coming, so that when it comes, there's really no excuse. And they, immediately will start to see, unless they're so hardened of heart, unless they're so stubborn and rebellious to God, they'll acknowledge that the Lord has been speaking to them through this prophet. We also see in the allegory that we're speaking about here, basically Jerusalem or Israel and the house of Israel is basically just giving away all of God's provisions. God basically took them from nothing, from their nakedness, built them up, and they were basically just scorning it, and in order to get things from other idols, in order to get provision from other cities like Egypt and things like that, they were kind of underselling themselves. They were giving away what the Lord had given to them, basically for they were basically making different covenants and deals with these other nations with the Lord's provision. It wasn't even theirs to give in the first place or to say was theirs. It was given to them in order for them to reflect the splendor and the glory of being a chosen people, a chosen wife of Israel, and they were kind of just whoring around with the other nations in the area. So of course the Lord became upset with that, and in his jealousy he's going to deal with these people in such a way that many of them are going to perish and a few will be saved. But through his dealings with them, and as he starts to deal with them and they turn away from their ways and back to him, his anger is going to subside. As he says, he's going to have everlasting covenants with us and the house of Israel, so that his faithfulness never breaks with us, even though we're completely unfaithful time and time again, it seems. And then we see here in the last allegory that the prince, even though he's in the house of God and he's an Israelite, he made a covenant with another nation. He's already basically given away his rights as the king under God and has sold himself to basically making this other man his God, because he has to follow the covenant, otherwise he's not even considered a king, it says here. Basically on this other man's account, he is still allowed to be king instead of being chosen and anointed by God. He kind of, through fear or whatever treaty it is, it says here, basically he kidnapped everyone, took them to Babylon, and then made a treaty under oath. Because of their fear, they gave in and sold themselves instead of standing firm in their beliefs and not denying the Lord. So it says here that prince and the king is going to die in Babylon, because the Lord's not going to necessarily bless somebody that's sitting here and not only rejecting God, rejecting his own oaths to other people as well. So as he tried to find a way to manipulate the situation, it looks like here, or try to get himself out of that treaty with this other king, his actions were not favorable to the Lord, and the Lord's going to have to allow him to die in Babylon. So these are some of the things just to kind of think about before we close here and move into the next section next week, is just kind of, if there's a sense of an idea that some future events might be happening, someone's telling you, if you go down this road, this is what's going to happen, or even if you're getting those impressions yourself, as far as like, if I do these things, these actions may happen against me, and then they start to happen as you're doing them, pay attention. Like, that may or may not be someone speaking through the Spirit of the Lord to you, in order to get you to notice God and the direction He's having for you, and that your actions are either for or against Him per se. It seems like most of the time He's showing you that you're actually not walking with Him when He starts to tell you, hey, watch out for these things, or somebody else is acting them out and then they happen. So that's just some things to kind of talk about. I did get a comment recently about salvation and what that would look like. So actually, as we go through this, start paying attention to what's happening, because the house of Israel has been completely rebellious. They're acting out against the ways of the Lord, of their God. They're breaking the covenants with Him, and then they're creating false idolship, false worship with these other nations. They're mixing their beliefs with them. They're also not even conforming to them. They're doing things that are so detestable that the other nations are looking at them and disgusted with their actions, which is really awkward. You can only imagine what must have been going on. And so with that, you actually see that the Lord is saying, hey, I'm completely disgusted with you. I'm angry with you. This is detestable to me. But as I unleash my anger and wrath upon you, I'm actually outpouring something that will eventually stop. And we'll find out through that will become what the salvation will look like, because we all, the wages of sin is death. So every single person has fallen from righteousness. Not a single person has been considered righteous, except for our Lord Jesus Christ. So in that, we're all basically going to have to pay for our sins. And so in that, God is saying there is wrath to come. But as that wrath pours out on you, it will subside. So we'll go later on, and when we actually talk about Jesus later on in this Son of Man series, we'll get to go into greater depths on what that salvation looks like. So I hope to hear from you guys again and have more comments actually in the section. And then if you actually like the video, go ahead and subscribe as well. So I hope to be hearing from you guys soon. Have a good night.